Alright guys, today what I want to do is I want to look at the Bengals free agents, um, figure out whether they should try and keep them or not, and if they don't re-sign them, who would be a good replacement in free agency. So let's start in the secondary. Two of the top three corners are free agents, William Jackson III and Mackenzie Alexander. When healthy, Alexander played well, but of course he wasn't always healthy, so I think another one, maybe a 2-year deal would be good in that instance. Jackson's a tough one. You've seen a lot of fans saying they'd prefer not to keep him. Others saying he's their best bet because he can play up to a number one corner level where he was drafted. But he doesn't consistently play at that level. He does get beat quite a bit. But knowing the Bengals free agents process, their best bet is probably going to be to keep Jackson. Because they're not going to go and try to sign a guy like Richard Sherman or Chris Harris Jr., some of these true number one corners that are available. They're not going to go for it. Their philosophy has often been pay their own if they're deserving, and then try to reinforce with day two type free agents and the draft. So when it does come to these guys, like I said, they're not going to go for these top tier corners. So ideally, yes, I think their best bet is going to be to try to keep both of them. However, they still need reinforcements because LaShawn Sims played far too many snaps, and the guy you paid a lot of money to be your number two corner, Trey Waynes, did not play a single snap. So if they let one of them go, good replacement to be they can continue the ex-Viking cornerback trail, bring in Xavier Rhodes. He played very well in Indianapolis. Getting him here, I think, would be a good reinforcement and a guy you know can play a Pro Bowl level number one corner type. Other options, you got Kevin King in Green Bay. I think he's probably going to be just beyond what the Bengals would like to pay. So other guys would be Quinn Dunbar in Seattle. He's been solid. Ronald Darby used to be very good. Not so much now. He had a decent year in Washington. But then a guy who I think has been often under the radar in his career, Bashaud Breeland, Kansas City. I think if they got him, he'd be a good reinforcement. But either way, I think they need to address corner in the draft, ideally day two. Probably third round, unless all your D tackle options are gone. When the second round pick comes around, then just go for a good corner. Staying in the secondary, you have longtime starter Sean Williams, who got moved to the bench, was said he was going to play a lot, hardly played at all with Von Bell. Von Bell played very well. You got to give him credit for that. But Sean Williams clearly is a man out of town. There's no need to keep him. You can easily find a backup safety type. You got Anthony Levine, Tavon Wilson, or guys who can spot start. That would be another position to reinforce in the draft because you got two very good starters. You just want to build up some depth. And the other big one, Carl Lawson. It's not a question of whether or not they should, because they 100% should bring him back. The question is, will they? Because his other defensive end mate, Sam Hubbard, is also due for an extension. Are they going to want to pay both of them good money to stay? I don't know. But Carl Lawson is showing to be one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. He doesn't always get there, but he breaks through consistently. He's the kind of guy you definitely want to keep around. If they wait too long, we'll find out. It's very hard to say. If they don't, your dream is going to be Shaq Barrett. Bengals had a multi-year deal with him last year. They looked at his shoulder. They didn't like what they saw. Said sorry. He goes on, signs a one-year deal, wins a Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. Now he said he's looking to break the bank. Again, I don't think they're going to want to do that because, again, they're going to want to pay their own, and they've said offensive line is the position they want to focus on in free agency, as it should be. So I don't think they're going to want to go that far. However, other options, we could bring the hometown boy, Derek Wolfe, back. He's not the kind of pass rusher that really puts fear into opposing offensive lines, but he's respectable enough. D-line is definitely a position of need in the draft. So either way, they have to go. But the other option, I think this would be very good. Ryan Kerrigan from Washington. He was there for a long time, but now they have Chase Young and Montez Sweat. They could bring him in. He said he wants to start. So if they don't bring back Carl Lawson and they bring in Ryan Kerrigan, he's your starter. He can still get to the quarterback. Maybe he's not going to get 10, 12 sacks, but he's going to put up solid numbers. He'd be a very underrated signing. Sign him to a 2, maybe 3-year deal. Draft someone. Let Kerrigan mentor him. Let him ride off into the sunset. Boom, you got a guy ready to take over. Would they do that? It's the Bengals, so who knows? Like Carl Lawson, I definitely think should be the number one target, and then some form of cornerback. Josh Bynes, they signed him from Baltimore last year. Played as a starter most of the year. Very solid. He brought a lot of veteran leadership toward the team. So I think, yes, it would be nice to bring him back, but they can let him go because Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt are a very solid nickel linebacker duo. So if they let him go, it's okay. But linebacker is one where if they could get another veteran leader type, it would be very helpful to bring these guys along. If they don't, there's linebacker Joe Thomas. They could sign. Reuben Foster's had an up and down career. If he came in, he'd know he was a backup. Just play well and try to earn that next deal for him. And Craig Robertson, I think he was with the Saints last. He's also been kind of up and down, starter, backup. Come in, give you some solid snaps, give you what you need. I think he'd be a good signing. Lastly, you have the wide receivers. Talked about AJ Green a couple weeks ago, so we're not going to mention him. You've got Mike Thomas, John Ross, and Alex Erickson, all scheduled to be free agents. So wide receiver, definitely going to need to be another position addressed in the draft. I pegged that as day 3. Ideally, that's your 4th round pick. Bengals have actually been fairly good about getting 4th and 5th rounders to come out well. I think that'd be a good spot. Mike Thomas, he would be like Josh Bynes. It'd be nice to bring him back because he played well in spurts, but they can definitely let him go and they'll still be okay. Ross, obviously, no. He was benched. He was terrible. Never was a fit here. I don't understand why they drafted him to begin with. That's another soapbox moment. Alex Erickson, maybe he's a good punt returner, but that's been his main thing. He hasn't given much on offense. You've got Brandon Wilson, who's shown to be an elite kick returner, and they can put someone else back there to be the punt returner. So 50-50. If they want to, great. If not, it was a nice story. But replacements. I've seen a lot of people say they should get Curtis Samuel from Carolina. Ohio State boy, which is nice. But the tough thing is he's not as fast as John Ross. But they would have to get very creative on offense to make it work with him. Because they don't really do a lot of these gadget plays or don't do a ton of screens and things like that. If they felt like being creative, yeah, he'd be great. But that hasn't shown to be the Bengals' MO. Right. Maybe with more weapons like that, Brian Callahan would be comfortable with it, but it just hasn't seemed to be that way. So I question whether or not that would be a good signing. Same if they went Devontae Smith in the draft, honestly. I'd rather have Jamar Chase for the Bengals. But other options in free agency, you've got Chris Conley from Jacksonville, was with Kansas City. He's your solid guy. He could definitely come in. He'd know he's third type receiver. He's comfortable with it, has played in that role a lot. Give you solid snaps, get you some good catches. Another one underrated. David Moore out of Seattle. He'd be a very good one to get, I think. You could sign him to a multi-year deal in 2-3 years. He's played well. He gets overlooked because obviously DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are up there. But if you got David Moore, that would be a solid, underrated signing. That would really help out the wide receiver room. Now, I mentioned Josh Reynolds before. I think he's another one that's probably gonna sign quickly or re-sign, depending on what the Rams decide to do. I think he'll probably be too expensive for them, and he's gonna want to look for a bigger role. But there are options out there. Ideally, the Bengals are going to go hard after Joe Thuney, and the rest chips fall where they may. Hopefully, this offseason goes a whole lot better than what the Reds offseason has. Ugh, good grief. It's going to be interesting, but we'll talk to you later.